So today we're going to talk about the Gestalt organizing principles. Namely, we're going to talk about seven: good continuation, pragnance, similarity, proximity, common fate, common region, and uniform connectedness. So let's start with the first one, which is good continuation. So good continuation states that when points are connected in a straight line or in curving lines, they are perceived to belong together. So if you take a look at this figure, which is a DNA, you can see that there are two strands of DNA. So, that's why it's a double helix structure. And as you can see that we this point and this point and this point are connected through, and you can see that they continue through this line. And if you a more specific figure is this figure. So we have two curving lines which intersect at this point. However, because of good continuation, we see them as two lines, as seen as in figure B. So here we see them as one. This is the first line. This is the second line, rather than something two semicircle structures that are connected through this line. So same thing as here in the DNA, we see this double helix structure as two lines that are curving which intertwine to each other instead of semicircle shapes that are connected at 2 points. So instead of seeing this as a semicircle connected to this semicircle and so on and so forth, we see them as two lines intertwining with each other. So next is pragnas. So stimulus pattern is seen in such a way that the resulting structure is simple as possible. So the most common example given for this Gestalt principle is the Olympic logo. So in the Olympic logo, there are five circles, three on the top, two in the bottom, and we think of this logo as circles interconnected to each other, rather than this figure here, wherein it's a bunch of circular shapes and oblong shapes that are connected with each other. And this is because this is what the Pragnan states, that we tend to look at things in the most simple way possible, rather than the more convoluted explanation. So next is similarity. So similarity means that similar elements are recognized and grouped together. So that in this picture, I don't if you haven't seen it yet, there's a leopard here in this picture, and it's because of this principle. And maybe if you had a hard time, and this is because of the similarity principle, the colors and the patterns on the leopard kind of resemble the background, so we don't see the leopard at first, but because it blends well with the background, we see this as maybe at the first look just a bunch of rocks. However, if you really look at it, you can see that there are rocks and there is um, leopard in the picture. So next is proximity. Simply put, things that are near each other are grouped together. So if you look at these 36 dots, they are grouped. They are seen as together. They're related to each other. However, when we break them up in three groups, 12 dots in each group, we we tend to see these two dots more related than this dot, and that we tend to see these two dots more related with each other than any of the dots in these structures, even though they are essentially the same dot. And this is because there is a distance between there's a distance and there is a sort of grouping, or this is grouping of dots. And this kind of plays into the concept of grouping, wherein the perceptual organizational concept of grouping, wherein we tend to group things. So next is common fate. So common fate is things moving towards the same direction are grouped together. So as you can see, The example they always give is the flying V formation. And the thing is, the thing about this is, you don't when you see this in the sky, you don't say, hey, there are around 20 to 30 birds flying in that direction. No, you think of it as, hey, there's this flying V formation going that way. The same way happens in traffic. So if you have two lanes of traffic, one going north, one going south, you don't say these 500 cars move to the north, these 500 cars move to the south. No, you see the traffic is going north, the cars are going north, the other cars are going south. You group them together in reference to where the direction they're headed, collective direction they're headed. So next is common region. So elements within the same boundary region are grouped together. So there, I have two figures here. So the first figure is there are six dots, and the two dots are bounded by oblong shape. And the thing is, what this principle tells us that you would see these two dots more closely related rather than this dot and this dot, even though they might be closer to each other than these two dots. And this is because there's a bounded region. So our brain tells us that our brain makes sense of this by saying that these two are more related than any of the other dots here. Another example is this one, but just it's just this with more dots and a bigger bounded region. So this dot and this dot are closer together in distance. However, one because of the principle, it tells us that this people would think this dot is more related to this dot or even this dot, even though this dot and this dot are closer together. And this is because there is a bounded region. They're bounded within the same region. So the last one is uniform connectedness. So connected region of the same visual properties such as lightness, color, texture, motion is perceived as single unit. So it's a lot like this one. It's a lot like this one. However, there is extra line added, so they are physically linked to each other. And people would the principle states that you would not see this as two dots and a line. However, you see this is one unit. You would think maybe this is a figure of a barbell, and you and this holistic view on it is because of this principle. Because they are physically connected with one another. So moving on from Gestalt psychology, we're going to talk about perceptual segregation. A lot of the a lot of the principles discussed kind of funnel down into this concept of perceptual segregation, and the most prominent concept is figure ground segregation. So figure ground segregation just states that in a particular stimuli or image, there are two things that are there are two things that are present. The figure, the element in focus, it stands out from the ground, which is the background or everything else in the figure. So, for example, in this picture, we could see Batman over here, but and this black shape as Batman, and everything the yellow is the ground, and it's kind of hard to make sense of it. However, when we invert the picture, which is shown here, we see Penguin now, and Batman becomes in the background. This black thing's background. The figure we prominently see is Penguin. So this is a sort of gist about figure ground segregation, and I'll go through it more further. So I'm going to use this image to discuss perceptual segregation even further. So there's certain principles of figure and ground. So firstly, figure is more recognized than the ground. So wait, let's just go back a while. Figure is more recognized than ground. So as you can see, that's why you see Batman. However, you might have a hard time seeing Penguin. Figure is in front of the ground, as you can see, for me, and near the borders of the figure, the ground is seen as unformed and uniform. So see, yeah. So as you can see, the borders seem more unformed and uniform. So there. The border separating the figure and the ground appears to belong to the figure. So as you can see, since you see, if you look at here, the figure is Batman, and the outline, the shape of Batman, the shapes of Batman outline is owned by the figure, Batman. So moving forward, this is the scene again I was talking about a while ago, short time ago. So there are image-based factors that determine which area is the figure. So I would like to ask, which do you think is the figure, which is the ground? So the figure in the ground for me is this. This is the figure for me, and everything else essentially is the background. And the thing about this is because figures are objects in the lower portion of the field of view are more likely to be perceived as the figure, and convex sides of borders are more likely to be perceived as figures. So as you can see here, this sort of mountain range is in the lower portion of view, and it has a lot of convex sides. It has a lot of convex sides all along its border. So it the the concept of convex sides and lower field of vision makes sense. So we're gonna talk about that in more detail in this one, in Peterson and Salvaggio's experiment, wherein they had this red square pala, and they would they would show them three different figures, and they would ask the participant, where is the square dot located? Is it located in the figure, or is it located in the ground? And they found that the participants answered that when the square was located here in the black portion, they would say figure, and if it was located in the white portion, it would be they would say ground. And you can see that there are and this experiment found out that, yeah, convex sides of borders are more likely to be seen of figures. So that's why this whole black figure here is considered that. That's what they made sense of it. Why people answer that this black portion with convex sides are more likely to be seen as figures. So a lot of Gestalt psychologists believe that past experiences are not necessary in recognition, and Max Wertheimer thought about this, and came up with this drawing. So I would like to. So what do you think this drawing is? When I first saw this, I thought it was just an H with embellishments in the middle. However, apparently it's just the letter W and the letter M stacked on top of each other. And the thing that Wernheimer pointed out here is that most of us, the general population, know what the Arabic symbol for W is and what the Arabic symbol for the M is. However, when they were presented in this way, we couldn't make it out. We couldn't tell that this was the W, this was the M. And this points it out that even if you did have experience previous experience with certain stimuli, you will still not be able to see it because they don't make sense. They're not meaningful.